Welcome back. Today I want to talk about a specific type of content that has been taken over my feed lately. And if you spend any time on social media, it's probably taking over yours too. It's the video where a creator or an influencer sits down in a beautifully minimalist, sunlit room, takes a slow sip from a matching ceramic mug, looks directly into the lens with an expression of deep, serene wisdom and says, "We all just need to practice more gratitude. Look around you. Statistically, we have it better than any generation of human beings that has ever walked the earth." And look, let's stop right there and be completely honest. They aren't lying. If you look at the raw data, it's an undeniable fact. We have access to modern antibiotics that can cure diseases that used to wipe out entire cities. We have clean, running water inside our homes, temperature control, and a global supply chain that brings fresh food to our local grocery stores regardless of the season. On top of that, we carry a supercomputer in our pockets that connects us to the entirety of human knowledge in less than a second. By every measurable metric of the ancient world, the average person today lives with a level of luxury that would make Roman emperors and medieval kings look impoverished. We should be grateful. Acknowledging that is important. But here is where I want to start thinking out loud today. Why has this beautiful truth turned into an intellectual trap? Lately, it feels like this constant reminder of our historical privilege isn't being used to inspire appreciation or peace of mind. Instead, it's being used to silence genuine struggle. It has become a soft, comfortable cushion to rest on, a way for society to look at skyrocketing modern anxiety, a brutal housing market, loneliness, and the genuine mental health crisis of our generation, and just shrug and say, "Hey, at least it's not the Black Plague. At least you aren't fighting the saber-toothed tigers. Stop complaining." But that is a deeply flawed and dangerous way to look at human progress and the human psyche. The fact that Louis XIV didn't have Spotify does absolutely nothing to help a young person today who is working 50 hours a week and still can't afford to buy a home. Your smartphone cannot pay your rent, and a spreadsheet showing historical GDP growth does not cure a deep sense of isolation. Our brains don't live in a history textbook. They are biologically hardwired to survive and adapt to the environment we are standing in right now. When we tell people to just be grateful as a response to systemic modern problems, we aren't practicing philosophy. We are practicing a form of social and biological illiteracy. Human progress has never been driven by people who looked around, felt perfectly satisfied with all their ancestors achieved, and went to sleep. Progress is born from a very specific, uncomfortable, and necessary kind of dissatisfaction. It comes from looking at a system that works good enough and demanding that it works better. So today I want to unpack this gratitude trap. I want to make the case for why being thankful for how far we've come should never become a reason to stop fighting for where we need to go. Let's think out loud about why we need to get up off the laurels of history, and why it is completely okay to say that living better than a medieval peasant is no longer the gold standard for a successful human life. To truly understand why we shouldn't use past progress as a couch to lie down on, we have to look at what we actually are at our own core. We are not static creatures. We are not designed to reach a certain level of comfort, clap our hands and say, "Perfect, we've reached the destination, let's stop here." When lifestyle creators tell us to just be grateful because we have electricity, running water, and central heating, they are making a fundamental mistake about human nature. They are confusing survival with thriving. Yes, a medieval peasant or a Stone Age ancestor would look at our warm apartment and filled with refrigerators as an absolute unimaginable paradise. But our biology does not live in a history textbook. The human brain is a magnificent, restless, and deeply beautiful problem solving machine. It operates through a process called hedonic adaptation. This isn't a design flaw, it's a feature. Our brains are hardwired to quickly turn yesterday's luxury into today's baseline, not out of greed, but out of necessity. It scans its current environment, identifies the friction points that exists right now, and immediately tries to find a way to fix them. If our brains didn't do this, we would be evolutionary dead ends. And here is the beautiful, incredibly positive truth about that mechanism. This inherent restlessness is not a sign of entitlement. It is our greatest virtue. Think about the history of human achievement. If our ancestors had adopted the passive, just be grateful mindset the moment they discovered how to control fire, we would still be sitting in dark caves, perfectly content with warm meat and protection from predators. If the thinkers, engineers, and medicine men of the past had looked at the invention of basic water wheel and said, well, this is so much easier than carrying buckets by hand. Let's just rest here. We would never have built modern sanitation. We would never have mapped the human genome, and we would never have sent voyages into the deep sea or rockets to the moon. Our desire for more, our intuitive feeling that things can be better, isn't a toxic trait. We need to meditate away. It is the evolutionary engine of empathy, innovation, and survival. It is a creative, optimistic energy. When you feel a sense of dissatisfaction with the world today, whether it's the fragmentation of our communities, the unique stress of the digital workspace, or the loneliness of modern cities, that isn't you being broken or ungrateful. That is your human spirit doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is looking at the current reality, identifying where it hurts, and imagining a masterpiece. So when we talk about refusing to rest on our historical laurels, it's not about being angry, bitter, or blind to our privileges. It's about honoring the very spark that got us out of the wilderness in the first place. True gratitude isn't passive, it's active. We can be profoundly thankful for the incredible tools, laws, and comforts our ancestors handed down to us, while simultaneously recognizing that their ceiling is meant to be our floor. We use those historical achievements to build the next level of human society. Not to lie down on the floorboards, close our eyes, and go to sleep. We are biologically built for progress, and chasing that progress is the ultimate act of hope for the future. Now that we understand that our minds are built for constant improvement, we have to look at how this plays out in the actual, everyday world we live in today. This brings us to the second major flaw in the just be grateful narrative. It confuses absolute historical statistics with the lived reality of human experience. When a content creator shows you a chart proving that global poverty is lower than it was in the year 1800, or that child mortality has plummeted over the last century, they are telling the absolute truth. Those are triumphs of human ingenuity. But here is the piece of puzzle they completely miss. Human beings do not experience life through global historical averages. We experience life in the immediate relational reality of our own communities, or our own peer groups, and our own time. If you are a young person today trying to establish your footing in life, the fact that King Louis XIV didn't have central heating does absolutely nothing to lower your electricity bill. The fact that medieval peasants didn't have smartphones does not help you secure a mortgage in brutal housing market so you can build a stable home for a family. Looking at life this way is not selfish, it's deeply logical. Wealth, security, and baseline need are not fixed points in frozen in time. They evolve as society evolves. In the modern world, high-speed internet and digital tools are no longer luxury terms you should just be happy to witness. They are the literal entry tickets to participating in the workforce, gaining an education, and keeping a connection to society. You cannot pay your rent with historical gratitude, and you cannot cure a deep modern epidemic of isolation by reminding yourself that you don't have to worry about Viking raids. This brings us to an incredibly beautiful, positive realization about social evolution. Every single progress humanity make simply establishes a brand new baseline for what a dignified life looks like. Let me say that again. Every single progress humanity makes simply establishes a brand new baseline for what a dignified life looks like. When we look at our society today and demand better mental health in infrastructure, fairer economic systems, or less fragmented communities, it is not a sign that our generation is spoiled or ungrateful. It is the ultimate proof that the previous generations succeeded. They successfully conquered the most brutal, primitive problems, like mass starvation and basic infections, so that we finally have the cognitive bandwidth, the resources, and the privilege to tackle the deeper, more complex human challenges. Demanding that we stop pushing for progress just because our survival needs are met is like stopping a painter halfway through a masterpiece because the canvas itself is already very high quality. We should celebrate the incredible platform we stand on. We should fill us with immense optimism and profound sense of strength. But we must realize that the stable platform was never built for us to sit down on. It was built to give us the solid foothold we need to reach even higher. It is our responsibility to take the problems unique to our time seriously, with our heads held high, fueled by the positive belief that we are the ones equipped to solve them. If we follow the thread from our evolutionary biology to our modern social reality, we run straight into a historical pattern that we absolutely have to talk about. There is a hidden, darker side to the weaponization of gratitude, and it involves an understanding how power has always maintained itself throughout human history. When you see a wealthy, comfortable influencer sitting in a multi-million-dollar home, telling you to just look at historical charts and be happy with what you have, they might mean well, but historically the phrase "be grateful for your station" has almost never been uttered by the people at the bottom. It has almost always been a tool used by the people at the top to maintain the status quo. In ancient kingdoms, medieval fiefdoms, and early industrial factories, the ruling elite loved to remind the working masses that they had it better than the generations before them. Why? Because a population that is perfectly content, a population that believes they have no right to ask for more, is a population that will never demand systemic reform. It is an incredibly effective way to neutralize collective ambition. But here is the empowering, positive flip side to this realization. True gratitude was never meant to be sedative, to make you passive. It was meant to be a superpower that makes you dangerous to the status quo. When we look back at the greatest leaps in human rights, workers' rights, and social justice, the people who led these movements were not bitter, ungrateful cynics who hated the world. They were optimists. They were people who possessed a profound, beautiful gratitude for the values of freedom and dignity that they did have. And they used that exact gratitude as fuel to demand that reality catch up to those values. They looked at the progress their ancestors made and said, "Thank you for this weapon. Now watch me use it to cut down the next barrier." We need to reclaim gratitude from the lifestyle aesthetics of social media and turn it back into an active force of personal agency. Being thankful for our modern privileges shouldn't make us small, quiet, and compliant. It should make us bold. It should give us the psychological safety and the physical energy to look at the injustices, the loneliness, and the flaws of our current system and say, because I am fortunate enough to have clean water and a voice, I'm going to use my energy to make sure the next generation inherits a world that is even more connected, even more fair, and even more alive. We do not owe the institutions of today our silent satisfaction just because they are better than the institutions of yesterday. We owe the future of our constructive, passionate effort to keep building. So, where does all of this leave us? If the gratitude trap on social media is a sedative and blind anger is destructive, how are we supposed to navigate this modern life? The answer lies in realizing that gratitude and dissatisfaction were never meant to be enemies. They are two halves of the exact same coin. They are the twin engines of human greatness. Think of it like a master musician. A great musician doesn't look at their beautiful, expensive instrument and say, "Wow, this guitar is so perfect," compared to the wooden stick people used to play thousands of years ago. "I think I'll just sit here, look at it, and never play a note." No! They look at that incredible instrument, they feel a deep, profound sense of gratitude for the craftsmanship that created it, and then, because they appreciate it so much, they use it to write a brand new, groundbreaking song. This is how we must treat our historical privilege. Gratitude is not a destination where we unpack our bags and settle down. Gratitude is the fuel station. Ambition is the highway. When you fill your mind with genuine appreciation for the sacrifices of the past, for science, the democracy, the infrastructure, and the comforts we enjoy, you are not doing it to find an excuse to be complacent. You are doing it to build emotional resilience. You are filling your tank with positivity, safety, and strength. Why? Because changing the world, fixing modern loneliness, reshaping economic realities, and improving mental health care takes an immense amount of energy. You cannot build a better future if you are constantly burning through the toxic fuel of bitterness, resentment, and despair. So the next time you see a beautifully curated video telling you to be just grateful because you have it better than a medieval peasant, I want you to smile, take a deep breath, and say to yourself, "Yes, I am incredibly grateful. And because I have been given so much, I have a responsibility to build even more. This completely removes the unnecessary guilt that modern society tries to push on us. It is entirely possible to be deeply thankful for the roof over your head tonight, while simultaneously recognizing that the system outside of your door needs to be upgraded. It is entirely valid to love the life you have, while passionately fighting for the life humanity deserves. We don't have to choose between being happy, a happy observer, or a bitter critic. We can choose to be active architects of the next human chapter, standing tall on the shoulders of giants, looking straight ahead into the future. As we close our conversation today, let's bring it all back to that influencer video. The sunlit room, the warm mug, the quiet plea to just stop complaining and look at the statistics. We can now see the narrative for what it truly is. It's not real wisdom. It's an invitation to go to sleep. It's a beautifully wrapped excuse to look away from the very real, very heavy challenges of our time and pretend they don't matter just because yesterday was darker. But history didn't stop moving the day you were born. The story of human progress is a relay race, not a statue. Our ancestors ran their laps through the mud, through poverty and through plagues. They faced their monsters and they collapsed across the line, gasping for breath, just so they could hand the baton to us. They didn't pass us that baton so we could sit down on the track, admire how shiny it is and talk about how much harder their lap was. They handed it to us so we could run. So let's make a pact today to leave the intellectual pillow behind. Let's practice a radical, active kind of gratitude. Be deeply, profoundly thankful for the medicine in your cabinet, the water in your tap, and the freedom in your voice. Bow your head in absolute respect to the giant whose shoulders you are standing on. But then open your eyes, look out at the world as it is right now, and have the courage to say, "This is a great foundation. Now let's build something magnificent on top of it." Your anxiety is real. Your struggle in this modern economy is real. Your desire for deeper connection and fairer world is not entitlement. It is the living, breathing spirit of human evolution, whispering that we are not done yet. Thank you for thinking out loud with me today. Be grateful for everything you have, but never ever apologize for demanding better. Keep running, keep questioning, and I'll talk to you next time. Goodbye for now.